We'll see if this will start. All right, we're going to assume that this has started going. Hello, my name is Patrick Cashin, and we're here for the Charm City Hive Society launch. We've got James, Lynn, and Matt here to talk about their individual parts in making these meads. And here to start is James.
All right, I really wanted to thank everyone who's watching this evening and everyone who's taken part in our Hive Society. It's a really great opportunity to bring some unique and sort of more special meads than we normally do to you guys. A lot of times honey or other ingredients, time, things like that are considerations when we think about putting products out. But by doing this, we've created something where we can do whatever we want and make something special for a unique group of you all. I've noticed as the list of names has come together for Hive Society that a lot of people who have joined up are some of our oldest and really core supporters. And I, on behalf of the whole team, want to thank everybody for the dedication to the brand. This was really a dream that started a long time ago for me. I started out as a home brewer and a beekeeper back in college as a hobbyist, and I thought, one day I was like, man, I ought to make some mead with all this honey that I've got. Let's try this out, and it led to more and more and more, and eventually thinking like this would be not a bad business idea. And I'm actually in the very kitchen that was home to a lot of our early test batches. We started here in 2013, 2014, moved into a 1,200 square foot space over in sort of South Baltimore. And now we're in a 10,000 square foot space in the middle of town. You can see all the tanks behind Lynn there. It's really it's a massive amount of change, and the people that have really allowed that to happen or encouraged that to happen are you, our customers, our big supporters. It's we all, especially in a tough year like this, have a lot to thank you guys for. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Lynn, who is our new brewer, and she's doing an awesome job. Aprhodite was a really nice crack. I'll let her talk about it a little bit.
Hi everyone, I'm Lynn. Like Jane said, I'm a new brewer here. Started up in May, but I didn't really start getting my hands dirty with mead until about August, September. So Aprhodite came about basically because I was poking around in the ingredients cabinet in the back, and I came across this word I didn't know. I was like, well, let's see what this is about. And Googled it, and it was the Brazilian name for quince. Then I was like, okay, well, what's quince? I had to Google that, and basically it's like if apple and a pear had a baby, you got quince. So what's really cool about Hive Society is that, like James said, we get to make cool stuff, and being able to ferment exotic honeys is a really, really cool thing. And my first thought was I want to figure out and see what this tastes like relative to like what we normally do around here, which is typically wildflower-based things. It came out super rad, so I was like, all right, this is cool. My first thought was just, I know I want to do something with quince. I'll figure the rest out later. So once the firm went well, backsweeting with quince went well, and I was like, all right, how do I spruce this up and make it classy, sleek, sexy? Well, then I found pomegranate molasses and pink peppercorn. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna pinch a little pomegranate molasses in there, and then I'm gonna use pink peppercorn as a dry hopping agent, just to get a little bit of spice in there to balance out the sweetness and the acid. And then I ended up with Aphrodite, and the name came from my love and background for Greek and Latin mythology. And, since I've started working here, I keep hearing it's the nectar of the gods. So I was like, this makes perfect sense. And then when you do some digging, you find out that there's a lot of mythological information between Quince and Aphrodite, and that's how this all started, at least on my end. Hope you guys like it. With that, I think Matt's ready to go.
Hey, I'm Matt. I've been with Charm City Meadworks for almost 2 years now. I do production, so a lot of stuff on the floor, help out Lynn, and I specialize in packaging. I come from a beer background, and that was my approach to Tyche here. And with Hive Society, I got to do something I've been wanting to do for a while, which is make a Belgian strong dark style mead. So we used Belgian yeast, and then we also used date molasses, Zambian wildflower, and that was actually the only honey we used in this, was the Zambian, and we fermented it with the dates and then plum. And when it was done, it turned out pretty much exactly what I wanted. The esters come through really nicely, and really couldn't be happier with how it turned out. You get this really cool, like almost ruby color with it, and I'm really happy. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. I guess go back to Patrick if he has any questions or stuff for us.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. It's always great hearing from everybody and kind of where some of these different recipes kind of started and things like that. We did get a few questions ahead of time, so we can start with those. And then if there's any just additional information people want to give out, we can do that at the end as well. So first question is going to be from Glenn Mincer. They'd say, I'd like to know what is the best way to keep open still mead, and how long is it good after you open it?
So the easiest answer to that is that for the most part, still mead is going to go about the same rate as you might find with like a white wine. I think some people who are used to more highly alcoholic or like a higher ABV mead would say that it'll keep for a long time, but really it starts to oxidize pretty quickly. So really I recommend the best thing to do is to just find somebody to share it with.
Yeah, and I always find with strawberry ginger specifically, it's kind of hard to put the screw top back on. So at the other rate, the next question we have is from Megan Battles, and it says they'd love to know when the lemon peppermint stick flavor will be returning. This is another flavor that we had temporarily in our tap room, and I guess it has some fans out there.
Well, I would say that it's very likely that might come back when our tap room reopens. There's a possibility we might even bring it back for a Crowler only, tap room only to go release. As the spring and summer hits here, it's probably not likely to be in the Hive Society because it's a recipe that we've already kind of established, and we're trying to really innovate here. The point that I wanted to make that I forgot to make earlier is, I'm the founder and the guy who's come up with a lot of our recipes thus far, but we've really been trying to do a much more of a team effort when coming up with flavors, and it's really worked out wonderfully. So I really owe a lot of credit to both Matt and Lynn for these wonderful efforts on their parts. If you guys have requests or suggestions or ideas from time to time, you know, we're always happy to answer and entertain them. So, you know, send us a message.
Oh yeah, and a lot of that information is, of course, on our webpage, and we've also started some different social email addresses and things like that. So feel free to reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, what have you. We love seeing how you guys are drinking our products, and also what kind of brings you to us in the first place. With that, I know, James, you gave a little bit of background of at least the kitchen and things like that, where the mead business started. But can you at least talk a little bit about how it's changed as you have been working in the mead business?
So the amount of change over the last now it's 7 years to go from this kitchen to our existing facility. We're one of the largest producers of mead in the country at this point. We really sought out, I co-founded this with a good friend, Andrew Gefkin, who has since taken another day job. And it has been a constant struggle and challenge. Really been very lucky that through that whole process, we've had both incredible supporters who really like the product, all the way from our early days where our only retail presence was the farmers market, and we really didn't have any distribution, right on through all of our tastings. And, you know, we were doing self-distro for a long time. Andrew and I, the vision that we had in the beginning was really to do a drier, lighter product than a lot of the really heavier meads that were out there. That the sense was that mead has always been perceived by people as an occasional celebratory beverage, or sort of more of a novelty. And what we really wanted to do was make mead something that people wanted to drink every day. Try it after work. It's, you know, one of the main things in your fridge. And I think we've been very successful at that, particularly in our home region here of Maryland, DC, and Virginia. At some point, someone sent me a picture of a crushed mead can in one of the Baltimore gutters and said, "You've made it." And as funny as that was, it was also a little bit true, because if you see something like that, it means that it's become commonplace enough that people are just drinking it out there. You know, it fell out of a recycling bin, or so I would like to hope. And going from a staff of 2, you know, dumping buckets of honey into, you know, sometimes each other's hair as we're trying to get it into the tanks, and mixing with an agitator on the end of a drill, going to really a full production space with a staff of people that really know what they're doing. We've got an awesome team of friends and coworkers who have really come together to make this happen on the production end. It'd be hard to talk about the different ways in which it's grown, or even with our different staff members. I mean, in particular, Patrick, you and Matt have been with us for a couple of years. You guys have both watched it grow and grown yourselves a lot in your own roles. It's amazing. I mean, to go from nothing to the size that we are, and in 7 years, it's just an incredible amount of growth. And when you're in the middle of it, you're angsting over it the whole time. I don't think I've angsted quite so much as this past year, where I've actually had to work remotely the entire year because I have a high-risk health condition. I've had the team bringing me samples to try out and approve this or that. It's pretty wild. So I think that our next goals for 2021, really looking forward to getting the tap room back open again at some point once COVID abates. We have a lot of new recipes that we're working on for people and to bring out. We are cycling in larger rotation of special releases and seasonals, even in our normally available lineup. And we're hoping to take on some new territory. We sort of hit pause on that with 2020, but I expect to see us in a few more states.
Heck yeah. And so one other question I've got is also for Matt and Lynn. How do you feel that your beer like history has kind of translated into mead for you, and what kind of has been helpful, and also how has that affected some of the flavors that you guys have worked with and kind of want to work with in mead versus beer?
All right, well, so I like beer a lot, obviously, and that's why I worked with it to start. And coming to the Meadworks, already being on the drier side, has been fantastic. And there's stuff like the Tyche where try to emulate some of the flavors that we find in beer, which is always really fun to do, kind of reimagine, because you're able to introduce new elements and new sweetness without it being overbearing, which it would be in beer a lot of the times. But you're also able to do stuff you aren't able to do in beer, which has been really fun, and different flavor combinations that just would not work. And it's been really exciting and fun to figure what those are out and put together. And what I did before was a lot of packaging, so I've been able to carry those standards over. And beer is a little bit more delicate than mead as far as packaging, but we're trying to, make everything, really as high end as possible with our packaging and our procedures in general. So being able to bring that over as well.
I guess so. For me, I kind of tripped over a rock in my last year of college and fell into beer, basically. Didn't really care much about it. It was just, I need a job post college. What's up? And as I started to work with beer, I started to love the job. And I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't like beer that in the beginning. I was like a brown ale girl. It's very simple. Didn't like hop stuff. But as time grew on, I started to like hop stuff, and then I fell out of it again, especially with the new trend of how like hazy IPAs and things are going like that. But all in all, like beer gave me a great understanding of fermentation, yeast, how to use these tanks, how to use these pumps, tricks of the trade, like things that could be better, how to improve, like how to document things, OSHA, things like that. But I will say, like towards the end of my beer career, I really was starting to like it less and less, and I was getting more into sours, and not like the nasty, super sweet lactose sours. I mean like the good, balanced, real sours, and doing like flavor combos and finding balances and like figuring out the right acid component and all of that to make it taste like crisp and perfect is what really helped me when I fell into mead, which thankfully the guys called me up mid-COVID during May and was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Nothing." So it was actually really cool. I didn't know anything about mead, but now that I'm getting into it and I'm learning about honey and all the different varieties of honeys, the eyes as far as you can see, same with hops, like all the different varieties of hops, how you use them, how you manipulate them. The same goes for honey, and I'm just getting started. So.
Well, to be fair to Lynn, too, we were really excited to bring her on board. She had a relationship with another brewery, and we tried to scheme on some recipes in the past and never quite worked out until she ended up coming to work for us instead.
Oh yeah, and this has been a really great team to be a part of. We've grown so much, even just during the few years that I've been a part of the team, and it's really progressed a lot. And so I personally am really happy to be here. Well, I think this has been fantastic. We've got one last question that I feel I've got to ask, and this is from Ryan McComas. And as a honey expert, they feel that we're the most appropriate people to ask, how do bumblebees fly? Shouldn't their bodies be too big for their wings? They can't generate lift. So with that, I want to hand that off to you guys to say any last words of wisdom before you sign off. My name is Patrick, and goodbye.
My only comment is, how do ants carry the crap that they carry? Because they carry stuff that is tenfold heavier than their body. So I think the answer lies somewhere in there when it comes to insects.
Coming from an engineering background, the math works out a little bit differently when creatures are either as small as an ant or moving at the rate that a bee does. The type of flow that goes around a bee, in particular a bumblebee's wings, is very different than what would go over a bird's wings. And you can probably Google it and get a better answer than I can give you. But it's I come from an engineering background, which is part of how we also ended up with Charm City. So I felt obligated to answer.
All right, and any 2 cents for you, Matt?
Honey. I thought it was just the honey, yeah, which is why we make mead, right?
Oh yeah. All right, I'll be kind and say there is one last question that I'll just slip in. And are there any experimental or variants of honey that we've heard of recently that anybody wants to work with?
I'm interested in this one called sour sap. It caught my eye the other day, and I was like, "What is that?" And asked James what was up. And it comes from sour sap territory. That's all I know.
Nice. James, come on, honey guy. Anything crazy you can always mention?
Oh, we've got some wild honeys coming up on deck. I'm excited. We're going to be bringing in some stuff from a local beekeeper down in Anne Arundel that includes a lot of tulip poplar honey. I have a bunch of Tanzanian Miombo forest honey that is a sea container full of it that's headed this way right now. I really want to do some work with more unique varietals, but it's always a very hard balance because we have to get enough of those varietals, and it has to be a really nice example of that in order to make a batch. Because if it's sort of a watered down, so to speak, honey, you really want the honey to be coming just from that floral source when you pull it off. A lot of people don't realize that honey is basically just dehydrated nectar that the bees are, sort of removing the water from it. They add some enzymes to help it dry out, but those really ephemeral notes that you get when you smell a flower are really what come across in the honey. So it's when you get these unique varietals from plant to plant, where a beekeeper is basically taken and let his bees go entirely off that one crop, and you're able to pull that off. It's really special, and trying to get the best of the best of that and still have enough to make a batch of mead is kind of a tough challenge sometimes.